But the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
What is up, party people, and welcome to HBR News number 180. Rose McGowan turns on #MeToo, now hates women and survivors? I am your host, Brian Martinez, and I am here with my Russian troll bots to look at the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Clam Slam Badger style. Let's get started, shall we? So, today's panel normally would have consisted of Mike J, Hannah Wallen, Dr. Random McCam, and me, but for some reason, I still haven't heard from or seen Hannah or Dr. Random McCam in the call, so right now, it's just Mike J and myself. They might join us later, so I will leave their avatars up. I talked to them a little while ago. Well, I talked to Hannah, and I said, I'll see you in like a half hour, and she gave me a thumbs up, but she's not here, so, and Dr. Random McCam was in this chat not long ago, in the YouTube chat, and has, I don't know where they are. So we're just gonna go on because we gotta go on, right? We can't wait for too long. And the Facebook stream is already sort of stopped, so I don't want to lose any more time. So we'll see if he shows up later. I hope they do. And that my, story selections haven't finally made them go crazy or something else happened to them. I don't know. Maybe Hillary Clinton finally got to them. We'll see. So we have a great show lined up for you guys today. Despite that, I think Mike J and I can carry this on, on our own just fine. So please be sure to continue the conversations yourselves, both in the chat and in the comments section. And remember, what I believe her name is, I'm going to show you guys here. Don't forget what Ariel Dumas, writer for the Colbert Show, the Colbert Late Show, who is pictured here, don't forget what she said. Whatever happens, I'm just glad we ruined Brett Kavanaugh's life. That's not a story, just a little thing I thought I would share that I thought was great.
What a Dumas.
On this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be talking about Rose McGowan's pivot on #MeToo, or really, is it a pivot? You'll see. Robot gender stereotypes, because those are the pressing issues of our time. Conversations that lead to counseling, and much more. So stick around. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be a good time. And also stick around afterwards if you're a patron for the patron-only after show. Are you suffering from SCOTUS derangement syndrome? Does looking at the fear-mongering news media, the fear-mongering college you go to, and the fear-mongering TV or film that you watch make you feel helpless and scared like a little girl? Well, get off of that fainting couch, baby, because HuffPo has a wellness solution that's going to help you survive the noose until the next Pussy Hat March. Come, let's take a look at the 12 self-care tips to help you even when you can't even. Anyway, if you want to participate in our after shows, either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find yourself unable to find our content because YouTube finally dropped the axe on our channels, go to badgerfeed.com. That's badgerfeed.com. Ah, there he is. Are you late, or is this a case of did we have, maybe that's the problem. Did we have daylight savings here? Mike? Dr. Ranrakan? Mike J?
By the way, I'm here.
Oh God.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
There we go. Can I hear you now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, I can hear you.
I'm also getting messages from Hannah as we speak. She's got to restart her laptop, but she says she didn't get the call.
Yeah, me neither. It's like Discord shadow banned me. I was like going around typing these messages like saying I'm here. Can you all read me? And I wasn't getting anything back.
Okay, so you are here, and it's not like you just said, "Fuck this shit, I'm leaving," and I'm never.
No, I've been here
back.
for like half an hour, like wondering where the fuck is everyone? And then
weird.
The show was live. The show went live, and I'm like, what? There's my avatar. What the fuck is going on? Am I dead? Did it finally happen?
Wistfully staring at a noose.
Strange business is afoot, my friends.
That's strange. Maybe there are. I believe there are 2 Discords. I have 2 Discords for some reason. There's this thing called Discord Canary that tries to start up on my computer all the time, and I don't know what it is because I don't need it. It asks me to sign in, and I'm like, I don't know who you are, but go away. And but I haven't removed it because I don't know. Maybe it's important, so I just sort of left it because that's how much I know about computers.
Hannah's messaging me and said basically what Doc is describing is what happened to her.
Okay, well, I'll just wait till she gets in. It's fine. It's fine.
There might be an update you guys need. I'm not sure if that's available, but I updated like right before the show started.
Yeah, I do have a message saying there's an update, but I'm not going to do it right now. It'll probably ask me.
What I like about Discord, it doesn't bug me about all its fucking updates. I assume it does it all by itself. I wish more software would. But I guess, whatever.
Okay, so we will have the usual suspects, guys. And just in time, because we're going to start getting into the stories, so I guess I'm going to start. I guess we're going to do that. We're going to get into Rose McGowan. It's not really about Rose. I just want to say Rose McGowan has problems, right? It's not about her. It's about her statements. I just want to say this now. I don't want to pick on this woman. I feel bad.
It's like if it's just bad that she's allowed out in public, basically. She's not a bad person. She just doesn't. She belongs in padded walls. Is the thing.
Somebody did some serious damage to this person at one point.
Or she did it to herself.
Or she did it to herself, yeah.
She's
Let's
being
not
used
remove her agency.
She's being used rather cynically by the Me Too movement, but she's also using the Me Too movement rather cynically.
Well, she is one of the when you go to Time Magazine to look up the Silence Breakers, she is the first person that they show. I think she is like the person that started it. So, all right. Anyway, so hashtag Me Too is a lie. Quoth Rose McGowan. In an interview with the Sunday Times Magazine, Rose McGowan said Hollywood is a disgusting world untouched by feminism. I'm going to say that again before we get into the quotes. So you guys can hear it in the back. Rose McGowan says Hollywood is a disgusting world untouched by feminism. Hollywood doesn't have feminism, guys. All that feminism you thought you saw, you didn't actually see because Hollywood is untouched by it. Okay, just saying that first. From the article, these are the quotes of Rose McGowan. I wish I had sad music to play in the background. I should have prepped some, but quote, when men direct 96% of movies, she argues that viewers' minds have been shaped by a male gaze that has little interest in anything about women beyond being fuckable. Like goldfish oblivious to the water that they live in, we have all unwittingly internalized the Hollywood starlet's long fuck me hair and Barbie doll dimensions as the feminine ideal. I would know I was the one helping do it to you. Okay? Another quote, it completely messes with your head. I think if people start seeing the toxins that are fed to them, they will get really mad. She sees Hollywood movies as analogous to child porn, in that watching them not only damages but implicates us in the mistreatment of actresses. I don't really watch movies anymore, end quote. McGowan continues on the topic of Hollywood. I'm telling you, I know it doesn't sound like she's critical of Me Too. Yet, but she does get there. First, we have to establish that Hollywood is not feminist. That's important. And then we're going to get into it. And also, movies that have attractive women in them are pedophilic movies. I just think they're douchebags. They're not champions. I just think they're losers. I don't like them. How do I explain the fact that I got a GQ Man of the Year award, and no women's magazines and no women's organizations have supported me. She has been invited to none of the #MeToo campaign lunches or survivors brunches. Well, that sounds terrible, Rose.
I wonder why.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can.
All right.
Well, you guys will hear me better if I put my mic in the right place, though.
Yeah, that was quite low.
Yeah, having it up by my hair doesn't do any good.
So you got shadow banned on Discord as well? That was spooky, wasn't it?
That was a weird thing. Nobody on Discord from the Honey Badger Brigade would answer me, but I got an answer from my son when I contacted him today.
Yeah, it's just Discord being Discord. You've got to turn it off and restart every now and again, and actually go to the task manager to turn it off.
Well, and it did update when I restarted, so
it's probably it's probably an update thing. I have one pending, but I'm gonna wait until after the shows are over to do it.
Yeah, but the call didn't show up on either of my computers. So
okay. Well, I'm gonna let you hear. I'm gonna let you hear part of what we missed.
Well, I was listening.
Oh, you were?
My computer was
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I have the.
You have the write-up in front of you.
Write-up open and everything. So yeah, I just the whole thing with Rose McGowan. I do agree on the mental health thing. There's problems there, and she's being used, and she's using people, and but there's the other issue of there's a mentality among some women that makes being broken fashionable. And the reason I'm aware of it is because I've hung out with that mentality. I don't know how else to put it. So I've been on the inside of that, and it's toxic in the way that it's like poison for your mind, and you create this sort of internal echo chamber where it's like you're playing Madhouse, and honestly, I've watched people make themselves crazy by pretending to be broken and then breaking their own minds. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's something that happens in Hollywood, but the melodramatic, everything is awful, they are all out to get you, victims of everything, that sort of mentality, that sort of this is happening mentality, that actually seems to be characteristic in this case. And so I don't necessarily want to say that somebody else did something that broke this woman. This may be a fashionably broken woman, and I don't want to think that there's necessarily somebody out there who's guilty of something because of her behavior, and you should never assume that when a woman acts like this, that it's because somebody did something to her. It is Tyler Preston has it down. It is a type of attention whoring, but there's also, you feel important as a victim of something in a culture of fashionable victimhood and fashionable brokenness. Yeah, it's the only way I can put it, and it's a self-importance thing.
Well,
too.
I mean, they didn't invite her to the campaign lunches or survivor brunches. I mean, how could they?
And I'm not saying this is what's going on with her either. There may be something awful that happened to her that led to this, but never assume either way, because you don't want to go hunting for a guilty party, and there isn't one, because generally speaking, when society goes hunting for a guilty party where a woman's pain is concerned, there doesn't have to be one for one to be found. Yeah. And punished.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess the reason why I was thinking that there's a chance that there is that, I'm thinking about her early childhood, like possibly, if we look at it in terms of a person's history that could lead them into a path of, say, addiction and depravity and all these other things that start, and the other mental illnesses that pile up. There could be a case of something from early childhood, something with abusive parents, abusive mother, whatever. I don't know. It's all speculative. I'm just saying, I know that Rose McGowan does not appear to be well. And that is basically the extent to which I will make that statement, because I don't know anything else. But
if I can offer another theory,
okay,
very briefly, in the words of Rick James, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
It's true.
We're gonna get to that, I think. But okay. So I'll finish her quotes. But if you guys want to chime in on anything that she says, that's cool. So.
Well, something occurred to me a couple of rants ago. The thing about furries, bear with me. A lot of furries are just people who are sexually turned on by being treated like a household pet, and that seems bizarre, and it is. But what would be a grown adult who gets off on being treated like a child? And obviously, I'm not just talking about the diaper thing, about people who like to pretend they're a baby. I mean, what would be the beginning of that sort of spectrum of disorder? Yeah, it would start with shaving your entire body, I guess, and orientating yourself around your own victimhood, and I don't know,
or lack of agency.
Because a couple of 100 years ago, the only people who walked around wearing short shorts and next to nothing were children. Adults were generally expected to cover up. Since then. Quite a lot of women have developed this fetish for looking and being treated like a child.
Well, heck, 100 years ago, if a woman's head was shaved, it was probably because she was a prisoner of war and lice prevention measures were being taken.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I mean, the idea of this looking extreme like this is not necessarily like a lot of people do extreme looks, and it is for attention, and there's nothing wrong with like decorating yourself and stuff like that, but this is all geared toward looking victimized and vulnerable and helpless and pitiful and in need of societal protection and in need of compassion and sympathy and care and consideration and so on. It's a completely different thing than putting spikes in your head and making yourself look scary and tough. It's like the exact opposite of what people usually do with piercings and tattoos and trying to demonstrate that they're warriors. This is basically, hey, everybody, I have been and still am a target.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it makes sense in. I don't know how I don't know how many of the quotes that you got through. Did you get through any of the quotes while I was?
I got through the first two, and I was reading the McGowan continues on the topic of Hollywood, and that was basically the part where she sort of talks about the Me Too as Hollywood, I guess, as Hollywood sees it, and that's where it gets a bit spicy. So
if you compare what we just talked about with what she said in the first two quotes here, where she talks about the shaping of viewers' minds by men as if men having influence on people is suddenly poisonous and bad thing because, she doesn't hate men, right? She's not calling men poisonous and bad. She's just saying men's influence on people is poisonous and bad. Well, that's not hate, is it? And it's not...
of course not.
Portraying herself as a victim of masculinity, is it? And the idea that this sexualization of the female form and sexualization of things like long hair and a healthy body shape and things like that, all signs of good health, by the way. The idea that is a one-way street, that women never capitalize on the sexualization of their bodies and are only pushed into it by men, that goes right along with that whole brokenness and victimhood thing. This idea of, I'm in a river and it's pulling me along and I can't swim and I have no control over my interactions with other people, or my end of my interactions of other people, what type of job I seek to do, what type of career I seek to have, what type of self I seek to present to the world. No, that's all the fault of the people who are looking at me and giving me rewards for any particular type of behavior. My choice to take those rewards isn't really a choice, right? It's forced on me by, I have to have those rewards, so I have to engage in this behavior. I can't go get a job at a convenience store and suffer for 6 years under a mean boss. No, I got to be an actress. So I have no sympathy for Hollywood women. I'm sorry, but fuck you guys. You chose to use your body to make money. You chose to use your ability to pretend really, really convincingly to make money. And you chose to be part of this industry. You chose to participate in this thing. And you chose to make this the way it works. So you have no business complaining about getting paid to do that. You have no business complaining about the environment you helped create. And if you don't like it, it's on you to change it. Yep. And as far as I'm concerned, I keep going back to Goldie Hawn. Goldie Hawn did everything in Hollywood. She started out as a go-go dancer. And she went into comedy. She went into television. She sang. She danced. She wrote. She produced. She did everything.
She sounds like Nicole Arbor, but with talent.
She didn't have it handed to her by anybody, right? Zing. This was not, oh, hey, look, this cute little blonde girl. Here, let's give her everything. She worked for everything she had. She did exactly what the men do, and she succeeded. So all these whiny bitches, and I'm again, I hate to sound like a cunt here, but all these whiny bitches that are shaking their asses on the big screen and then bitching because people looked at their asses and paid money for it, and it becomes popular to view that type of ass as a sexy type of ass. Fuck you guys for this. This is bullshit. There is no victimhood in this.
To some degree, it is more difficult for women in the entertainment industry, particularly in acting, because it's more saturated with women than it is with men. Like I've said many times, for every one man trying to become an actor, there's at least 10 women trying to become an actress. So this is one of the only industries, well, the entertainment industry in general is one of the only industries that is populated more by women than it is by men. So in what way is it dominated more by men than it is by women? Except through hard work, Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, because there are plenty of women in Hollywood who could step up and do these things if they wanted to, there are plenty of intelligent women in Hollywood. There are women who, when you ask them questions about politics or current events and everything, you can tell they have the brains to do what the men are doing if they want to. But they make more money looking hot or being fascinating on the big screen. And there's no problem. It's fine that they do that. I don't see anything wrong with the feminine ideal that comes out of Hollywood. The beauty standards that come out of Hollywood are just fine. Nobody has to live up to those. I mean, I've never lived up to those. I've lived my whole life, living up to my own standards, and I'm quite satisfied with that. And the problem isn't that Hollywood women are pretty and it makes other women think they have to be pretty, or that Hollywood portrays a caricature of human sexuality and that people are entertained by it. The problem is when feminists tell other women, oh, you have to think of that as your reality and live up to it. No, you don't. You live your life. You live based on the people around you, and you interact the way you choose to interact, and you let Hollywood be what it is. It's entertainment. It's not reality.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to continue on the quotes that she's got. So I'll start from the topic of Hollywood because I didn't finish that quote, but I'll just start from the beginning. She says, quote, I just think they're douchebags. They're not champions. I just think they're losers. I don't like them. How do I explain the fact that I got a GQ Man of the Year award and no women's magazines and no women's organizations have supported me? She says that as though, presuming that GQ is not actually a feminist magazine anyway, which it absolutely is, and most magazines that are not gendered, like Time and Life, etc., are also feminist magazines, and they supported you as well. But I guess if it's not coming from L, it doesn't count. She has been
from the LGBT community, who I believe gave Emma Watson their first ever official award.
Oh, well, Rose, she'll get the attention she seeks. I mean, she'll fight the battle she needs to fight and hopefully win. She has been invited to none of the #MeToo campaign lunches or survivors brunches. Oh, and I don't want to go because it's all bullshit. Sour grapes. It's a lie. It's a Band-Aid lie to make them feel better. I know these people. I know they're lily-livered, and as long as it looks good on the surface to them, that's enough. Okay,
at this point, she's talking about the elves she's seeing in her head. She's gone up on one.
Is that? I was gonna say, if she's talking about the people in Hollywood that are kind of like virtue signaling, I would agree with that part. Then she says, Donald Trump supporters may be wrong about everything else, she says, but they hate Hollywood for being faux liberals, and they're 100% right about that. It's a bunch of faux liberals. It's crap, and they know it is deep down, but they're living an empty life, and to me, that's their punishment. They get to live the lives they live.
Wow, talk about stopped clock telling the truth once a day.
I know. McGowan says she spent decades plotting her revenge to reveal her story after she was raped by Weinstein and blacklisted, strategically maintaining a degree of fame in Hollywood to guarantee that when she went public, she'd make headlines. McGowan says she even had forsaken motherhood to take Weinstein down. Quote,
as she started to say Gollum in the middle of her quotes.
Oh, Gollum, yeah.
Gollum. Just like, that's really creepy.
Let me read this quote, and then we'll mention that. She says, quote, I've given up a lot. I opted not to have children because I knew.
Do it in a voice. Go on.
Oh, wait, I don't know if I can.
I've given up a lot, masters. I opted not to have children because I knew I was going to fight this fight. I couldn't do that with a child. It would be too dangerous.
It's just perfect. Oh my god.
Yes. And so Rose McGowan planned for 20 years or so in the industry to take down Weinstein by becoming a famous actress, skipping motherhood, not starting a family, just so she can wait for the right moment to come out of the shadows. She basically gave up her entire life.
Jesus Christ.
So that she can get this guy, according to her, which I think it sounds a little bit, what would you call, it's a little bit of an over-the-top martyrdom thing. Because to say something like, a little. So to say something like, so what I did was, I had planned on nailing this guy, but what I wanted to do was wait for the right time to strike. So what I did was, I allowed myself to become really rich and really famous, and I skipped on having kids, and then I waited until I was past my prime.
20 other people also.
Yeah, and I waited just to make sure everyone else is at the right moment, and then I was gonna come out and expose him as a fraud and a rapist, and everyone else is living a lie, but not me. Even though I did this for 20 years, I laid low undercover, but my life is not a lie.
You just can't have children, can you, Rose? That's what something happened, and now you can't have children.
But no, seriously,
it happens a lot. But consider yourself be grateful.
I predict rehab.
If that is the case, though, hats off for not having children. That is probably the most responsible thing she said in this entire screed. No kid should have to go through this.
Yeah, there will not be a book 20 years or 25 years down the line. Mommy Dearest Part 2, Rose McGowan.
Yeah.
Gives no wire hangers a whole new meaning.
So
it's not too late to go at Rose herself with a coat hanger. I'll start.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Okay, so let's sum up before I get to the last part, which I think is probably the juiciest, yet also most predictable, sadly. First, she starts, and I think this is crazy, but to start talking about the Me Too movement by saying men direct 96% of the movies and they make sure the women are fuckable in them, and then goes on to say these are all douchebags that don't actually care about women, and Hollywood is a disgusting world untouched by feminism, i.e. Hollywood doesn't have feminism in it, according to Rose McGowan's fever dream, her whatever, like, she's on, you know, that reality. Then she goes on to say that despite the fact that everyone in Hollywood is hollow and empty and they don't live real lives and they're just NPCs walking around Tinseltown making movies, she's real because she decided to pretend to join Hollywood as a model and then an actress, and then she got on the casting coach with Weinstein, and then got rich, and then skipped on kids after dating what's his name, Marilyn Manson, because she did date him for a while, and then goes on to become really famous after Jawbreakers and Charmed and fucking Planet Terror. And that's the moment when she basically hit the wall and can't get any work anymore. That was the prime moment to strike and come out with the Me Too hashtag. And now she exposes everyone for the hollow, empty frauds that they actually are. And then it gets better. Weinstein, okay, so in case you don't know, Weinstein has denied all sexual assault accusations against him, but will go on trial. Rose McGowan will also go on trial for cocaine possession that she alleges Weinstein operative planted on her. Because they're all empty.
Come on now.
I told you cocaine was going to get into this story somehow. It's just so good. And then, on top of that, on another side note, I don't know if you guys know this.
Though, by the way, if you're ever going through an airport with some coke, just give it to your girlfriend.
Yes.
She won't go to prison for it. You will.
That's true.
I'm not serious, by the way. Don't do that.
No, it's okay.
Don't take coke through an airport. It's a generally silly idea.
Yeah, it's generally bad. On another side note, also revealed in the interview, McGowan had backpedaled on her open letter about Asia Argento's affair with the underage actor Jimmy Bennett, now claiming that she misunderstood the old text sent between the two. Her statement had argued Argento to, quote, do the right thing, be honest, be fair, let justice stay its course, be the person that you wish Harvey could have been, quote, end quote. However, McGowan has now issued a public apology to Asia Argento, and things have seemingly been resolved between them. She has forgiven Asia Argento for fucking around with Jimmy Bennett from the time likely that he was 12 fucking years old. She has forgiven him for that. Okay, so I will now cede the floor to you guys to think, to ruminate on this. It
sounds like she thinks there's some context under which that might be okay. Some nuance that could justify that behavior, or at least make it harmless. And yet, she doesn't give Weinstein the same benefit of the doubt.
When men direct 96% of movies and they sexualize people like her, it's fine. It's terrible. It's terrible.
Even though there has not been anyone, that has accused Weinstein of taking advantage of them when they were underage. Everybody was an adult.
Yeah, and I bet most of them were consensual.
Well, see, that's just it. With a fetish for being treated like children.
The video that's come out and the sound files that have come out, Weinstein has boundary issues. Definitely has boundary issues. There's no question in my mind. The guy is one of the people, and this is a both sexes thing. I've had both sexes do this to me, that they don't see boundaries as a stopping point. They see boundaries as something to find a way to get under or around against the will of the person who has set the boundary. And you can watch him, and it's kind of creepy to watch him in that video, sort of edging as far as he can into that with someone who is in a position where telling him no has consequences. That I can say, no man or woman should get away with doing that. But at the same time, men and women have to be able to set boundaries. got to be able to say, you know, no, guys have a problem with saying, no, we don't have the money for that because they're afraid of women's behavior toward them if they do. And a lot of women have a problem saying, no, I don't want to do that. And a lot of it has to do with not being liked or not being wanted as a consequence. And they do this with both sexes, but they only hold men accountable. In fact, they hold men and boys more accountable than themselves for accepting yes when it's not a perfect yes. And that's not right either. And nobody should get along or get away with that, with putting responsibility for their own failure to set and enforce their boundaries on another person. So both sexes can be responsible in both of these instances. What bugs me is, along with all the other hashtag Me Too, or for the old folks, pound Me Too movement proponents, they have no problem whatsoever holding men accountable when men fail at dealing with boundaries, but they will not hold women accountable for either side of the boundary when women fail at dealing with boundaries. They are perfectly all right with women who treat other people's boundaries as something to find their way around or under or through against the other person's will without getting caught. They don't mind that at all. They are only bothered when a man does it. And that's a double standard, and it should not be allowed to stand.
Yeah, ruthless people are going to win in almost every situation, in almost every industry. The people who climb to the top most successfully are going to be the ruthless people, and you can't change that. It's not a bad thing. You can't change it unless you go fully communist, and no one's allowed to be ruthless in any context. But until then, it stands to reason the people who rise to the top will be either very, very strict, very, very assertive, or bastards. It stands to reason that complete bastards are going to make it to the top. And the question is, how do you get women to the top? Well, maybe be a bit more ruthless with them, like you are with the men. Like,
take some of the rest out of that resting bitch face.
Yeah, like treat women like you treat Harvey Weinstein. How about that?
There you go. See, this is why I'm never going to be successful. I cannot be ruthless. Ruth is my middle name.
I have several Ruths in the basement. I'll never be ruthless.
Ruth is my middle name.
Whoa. So I got some.
I can't be ruthless.
I can't be without it. Yeah. So I'm gonna read the super chats and then we're just gonna move on to the next story. But suffice it to say, it's an interesting thing. So what's also interesting is the way that a lot of the mainstream media reported on it. Essentially, they made it sound as though Rose McGowan was abandoning the Me Too thing. And they painted it in almost like a, oh my God, I can't believe she would do this because this is a movement to have voices be heard and all of that. When in actual fact, Rose McGowan is saying she doesn't like where Me Too is because it doesn't include her enough. And it's not feminist enough. And Hollywood isn't feminist at all, guys. It's not. Because men...
I'm not the censor of everything anymore? Well, yeah. Fuck all this. It's worthless.
So there you go. Crawl Dragon. Hey, Crawl Dragon, I've never seen you before. Welcome to Honey Badger Radio. Also, Alison was bugging me about this before. If you're watching this stream, and you're watching this stream on Honey Badger Radio, you might notice that there is no chat or super chat option. You want to come over to Badger Live Streams and subscribe to this channel because this is where the live show actually goes with the chats and the super chats, and it's where the party is. So come on over here and hang out with us.
We should rename this channel to Money Badger Radio.
Yeah, we should call this one Money Badger Radio. That'd be funny. Because we've embraced every label that's thrown at us, because who cares? That's why we call ourselves MRAs. Okay, so do that. Subscribe to Badger Live Streams and watch the shows here, because they're good. I promise you, they're good. And they're going to get better. Okay, Crawl Dragon gives us $5 and says, a coin in the plate to save Mike and Hannah from purgatory. It looks like it worked, because it was right before they jumped in that this happened. So thank you, Crawl Dragon, for rescuing them.
That was when I woke up and realized I was dead, and I rose again on the 3rd minute.
Well, the toll to get you guys from the underworld has been paid.
That's right. French Honey Badger.
So.
That's right. French honey badger.
How much you have to get paid to get unshadow banned from YouTube? How many pieces of silver will it cost me not to lose 100 subscribers every time I upload a video? Sorry.
Is it in euros or okay? French honey badger gives us $5 and says, "The best way for lies to be believed by others is to believe it yourself, and the job of actors is to lie and be attention whores." Yes. Hoki Bukisa gives us $1.99 and says Rose McGowan was a child sex slave. Don't know, but I'm open to evidence that points to it. I know
that would make sense. It makes as much sense as the drug casualty story. She shouldn't be in public once again. If Charlie Manson was out here in charge of a movement, I'd be like, that guy belongs in a padded cell as well. But as it happens, Charlie's in prison or dead. I can't remember.
He's been dead for a year now, at least.
It's only a year. Oh, there you go. And yet Rose is on the lam. So I'm going to treat her like I would treat any other nutter who wound up in her position. I'm sorry about whatever harsh life you had that led you to being this kind of nutter. But you don't belong in a position of this much responsibility where people actually listen to you.
You need people to take care of you. That's what I think. Okay.
Like part of it is the problem of when you experience a traumatic childhood event like that. You're either going to seek to normalize the brokenness that occurs, the damage you have from that, or you are going to seek to find normalcy yourself. And it seems like the one route, people who don't actually, go screaming to the four winds about their victimhood, people who they'll maybe willing to talk about it when things come up that it's important to the conversation. But aside from that, it's not a major part of their lives, that they don't revolve their lives around it. Generally seek to find their own normalcy. And they don't do things like what Rose McGowan and a lot of the other Me Too proponents are doing, where it's their whole narrative and their whole life, and everybody has to have that on their mind, and everybody has to feel sorry for them, and everybody has to stand behind them and all that stuff. The other end of it is to seek to normalize that sense of being broken by what happened to you. And you have this perpetual damage instead of recovering, instead of finding a path towards being a normal part of society, and being able to function with everybody else in your society, being able to have functional relationships with your profession and your public and whatever. They seek to have this, I don't know, circus. I guess there's not really much of a better word for it. And that's the camp Rose is in. And seems to be the camp that all of the Me Too proponents are in, is that normalizing the damage rather than recovering from it and seeking normalcy. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. More super chats. Hoki Bukisa gives us $5.
By the way, Hannah, did you turn your Audacity on?
I did, but I said the very first thing I said in this, I hadn't turned Audacity on yet, so I didn't get that, right. But I'm getting the rest.
All right. Brief reminder. Sorry, carry on.
Mike and I already started ours. Mike J, that is.
Yeah, we're Gucci.
Yeah. Hoki Bukisa gives us $5 and says Children of God sex cult. So that might, okay, so we'll have to look into that. Again, it's entirely possible, and that's why I think that's why I've seen crazy like Roses before, and this is not to remove her personal responsibility at all, but I think that in a lot of cases these things don't just come out of nowhere. So, Mr. Roboto gives us $2 and says, if all males were blind, is there still a male gaze? Yes, of course. Do you remember what's the movie? With their
hands, right? And with their white stick.
Yeah, they do it with their sticks and hands, stick and their sense of smell. Do you remember Al Pacino in *Scent of a Woman*? That was probably full of male gaze, because she's got a great ass.
The male sniff is even worse than the male gaze.
Hooah! Albert Nada gives us $5 Canadian and says, from Valentino to Henry Cavill, men have been objectified. Cavill's girlfriend once said other women wouldn't hit on him right in front of her. Also, Hugh Jackman. There's a big story about Hugh Jackman when he was making the X-Men movies. He endured a lot of sexual harassment, touching, groping, things like that. It's very common. And when you say Valentino, you're talking about the guy from the old silent films. I think his first name might be Rudolph or something, but I can't remember. Rudolph Valentino. Yeah, he's like the precursor to Errol Flynn. And yeah, it goes back that far. If not, obviously, that's just as far as film goes. I'm sure it goes before that as well. So yeah, we know that this is not new, but you know, 96% are directors are male, so that's as relevant and as important as the fact that she's not getting invited to the brunches or dinners anymore, the dinner parties for survivors. So, as long as we got our priorities straight, Mike, Jay, let's talk about the next story, if you could.
Yes, please. So, some hot implication implying over here. Tanika Stotz, a name you might not recognize, I sure as hell didn't. Editor for Image Comics and their publication Afar, has recently taken to Twitter with some spicy insinuations. In a recent tweet, Stotz states, quote, "I'm not linking to the article, but this headline, though. Richard Meyer sues Mark Waid over tortious interference with contract and defamation. There sure is a string of racist and rapist cowards hiding behind lawyers these days to try and sue."
Folks. No, it's like sue folks, but you're saving a character when you make it an X instead of KS. Folks.
It's like Latinx. We all get an X. Everybody gets an X. You get an X.
Pretty sure this is under the character limit, though. For telling the truth. I mean, if she really wanted to, she could have cut out the 3 dots.
It could be a black Twitter thing.
And why do you quit saying racist and rapist? We all know racists are rapists. Just say rapist. Just invent a word. Racist.
Is this a Latinx thing? This is a Latinx thing, I'm guessing.
Could be. Okay.
Anyway, the implication here, if you missed it, being that Richard Meyer, better known under the name of Diversity in Comics, is somehow a racist and even more scandalously a rapist.
Racist.
A racist.
When asked,
he rapes races.
To provide evidence for her claims, Stotz responded by suggesting the person asking seeks therapy.
All right, a little story. I know it's just like a tweet, but in what the timing of this is what I think is important. You know, after the Kavanaugh thing, where one person came forward and they basically made a spurious accusation, to say the least. This woman, because you know, you just target your enemies, right? It's like Mike and I were just talking about this before the show started. You know, he said this, and I think this is really the point. In 2017, everyone, if you were the enemy, they called you a Nazi. In 2018, it seems like if you're the enemy, they call you a rapist. And now, I guess you can also be a rapist and a racist rapist. By the way, is a rapist that's racist the kind of person that only rapes white women? Or is it the kind of person that will rape every race except white women? I don't know which one of those makes it racist. It's whatever's
convenient for the narrative. You know. I've heard both argued. I'm sure I have.
And again, it's just a side comment she makes. She basically just says out of the side of her mouth, this is some racist shit coming out. But at a time like now, to throw those things in there is pretty fucking dangerous. If people start to pick it's like the way that it's the way that people who want to run whisper campaigns or like attack your character started. They basically just throw out an accusation that you're probably a rapist, and then other people pick up on it, and all of a sudden you're at a hearing in front of Congress. So I think, I know that sounds like a slippery slope into the extreme, but I don't think that those kinds of things are said without the knowledge that it has that potential. And I think that it's important to notice that these tactics are starting to be used. That's what I believe anyway.
See, it's not just a case of free speech. If only it was as simple as free speech. You've got to argue for free speech while at the same time, acknowledging that there is such a thing as defamation. And that there is certain context where if you call people a rapist, it can damage their career. Like if everyone believes you, for instance.
Well, and it's hard to argue that this is a slippery slope argument when we just watched it happen.
Yeah.
We just went through, and we're still in the midst of it because they're not going to stop. But
Nope.
we just watched this go on. So it's not really a slippery slope argument. It's a look. This has consequences. This behavior has consequences. Don't engage in it. And I'll give you a good example of why this is not a rights argument. And it's not a matter of saying, she can't say these things. I believe 100% fully in the Second Amendment. I am all for the right to keep and bear arms, but I'm not for a right to use them wrongly. So, for instance, if I park in a parking spot that my neighbor wants, my neighbor cannot come over and shoot me and take my keys and move my car so he can have that spot just because he has the right to keep and bear arms. You have a responsibility. Every right comes with a responsibility. So the whole thing about the variety of defamation type laws is if you say something irresponsible and false and it causes damage to another person, the consequence of that is the other person is legally empowered to take you to court to force you to pay for those damages, to force you to reimburse them for the damage that you did. So if you cost them their job, if you cost them their marriage, if you cause their reputation to be publicly damaged in a way that interferes with them in a way that can be measured through financial expenses, or causes them to have to seek mental health help, or something along those lines. Somebody tries to commit suicide because of what you made up about them. It's not so much an issue that says you don't have the right to say these things. It's that you don't have the right to impunity if things that you say cause damage and are irresponsible and are false. Lies are not protected from consequences. Liars are not protected from consequences by the right to free speech. And another thing about the right to free speech, the actual constitutional right to free speech was created in order to protect the public from punishment by the government for criticizing the government. Political speech, political criticism, political debate, and political dissent are all supposed to be the most protected speech under free speech rights. Lies don't count. So
no,
while it's not illegal to lie, it's not protected from consequences. If you tell a lie about somebody and that lie
damages
puts them
them
in jeopardy, that lie causes them financial loss, or it causes them to be in danger, or it causes them substantial emotional distress, you are liable for the consequences, and that's not wrong.
Yeah, it's not the speech itself that's actually, what you have to take responsibility for. It's basically like what that speech causes, like the fact that it's a lie. It's not about, it's not about just saying something, right? So,
and you can't determine the intentions of that speech by yourself. You need a court for that. Even a court might not be able to determine someone's intentions beyond reasonable doubt. But you can't do it by yourself because you're not a goddamn mind reader.
mm-hmm. So I thought, again, Hannah makes the point really well. That was the purpose for me bringing up this brief story regarding, diversity in comics, and this woman throwing this out there because I have a feeling it may lead to either more people making these accusations, because again, this is what they do in 2018. Now that they've seen how far it can get someone, it's just a matter of, okay, we didn't get Kavanaugh, but we could get somebody else, maybe somebody less powerful. So we'll have to see how it goes. But just be aware that that happened, and that could just be the small pebble that rolls down the hill before the avalanche or whatever.
Well, they're going to do to this type of allegation. You know, they're going to do to this type of allegation what they did to misogyny. Misogyny is meaningless. Somebody calls you a misogynist, there is no there's no power behind it. That's not. There's no ammunition behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they shot at you with an air gun, you know, that doesn't actually have anything in it. And this is going to become the same thing. Well, yeah, you know, the left, they just call people rapists and racists all the time. It doesn't actually mean anything when they say it. It's their version of Tourette's, you know. They can't help themselves. It just slips out sometimes.
Rapist.
When they get really stressed out, you know, and it's an embarrassment to them, and they try to fight it, and it happens anyway. That's what's going to happen with the left and these types of accusations. Nobody's going to care when they say them anymore.
Yeah,
it's going to be worse than crying wolf.
Another part of the spectrum is doing the same thing with pedo, by the way, and pedo defender. You're using that so much that you're gonna render that particular insult meaningless. So we won't be able to tell the difference between the pedos and the non-pedos. Well
yeah, that's
done,
dangerous.
Guys. Yeah,
that's
well
really
done.
dangerous.
You're as bad as each other. Fuck's sake. So free speech, you know, notwithstanding, be careful what fucking insults you throw at people. Rapist is very dangerous. Pedo is very dangerous. Nazi is very dangerous.
2019, I'm going to call it right here. Cannibal. That's the new one.
I could see it, but only if they're eating people of color, women, and minorities. So, and like Muslims. Okay, so moving on. We got some super chats.
Wait.
Oh.
If a cannibal only eats white people, is that racist?
Yes. Because it means that they don't think that other people taste as good as white people.
Well, Milo,
it could go either way.
Milo only tastes black people, and he's still racist.
I saw that one coming. I saw like the light reflecting off of the sniper scope where Mike was pointing his rifle. Okay, so CR de Flora gives us $2 and says, "Court of public opinion is worse than the court of law. Absolutely, and has worse consequences. And it's a lot dumber." Albert Nada gives us $5 Canadian and says, "To back up Brian somewhat, I have a video about a prank that was pulled on Hugh Jackman on the set of X2. And I don't spare Jackman either. Go watch. Please do, but not now, after the show, please."
I can describe it really quickly. I believe I have it up right here. Hugh was genuinely naked when he filmed one of the scenes in X2, X-Men United, so the crew decided to play a little prank on him. He ran down the hall and turned a corner, only to find the entire female cast and crew present, and James Marsden's mom, who proceeded to make cat calls and moon over his naked body while they waved money at him.
And then they made him take a test, and
and he couldn't even cover his junk because he had the Wolverine claws on him.
That is like a nightmare that people have. It's one of the most reported nightmares that people have, right?
Yeah, being naked in front of a crowd.
They make it a reality. Ha ha ha.
Ha! Pranked. You got punked, Hugh.
It's just a prank, bro.
Take that. Don't get mad either. Miles Kinslow gives us $20. Thank you, Miles. Very nice. He says, "Do you think the Me Too movement was doomed from the start? Why hasn't there been a movement to encourage people to talk to the police and not to Twitter?" I'll let one person take that, and then we'll move on, whoever wants to.
We are that movement. We are the movement to encourage people to talk to police and not to Twitter. And we get slandered for it and condemned for it and called rape apologists for saying that rapists should be prosecuted instead of just talked about in anonymous terms on social media. So, yeah, Me Too was doomed from the start because it was shit from the start. It was never about the crime, and it was never about the victims. It was just about the narrative.
It was basically
promote the narrative.
Well, it started off, and it was basically
Let's
against
see whose lives we can ruin. Basically,
yeah. It was basically like
the Colbert writer who posted a tweet saying, "Whatever happens, I'm just glad we ruined Kavanaugh's life."
Yes.
And then you deleted it, but we know
it's about
that's
the power of the narrative.
It basically, the Me Too movement seems to me that it started off as essentially people in Hollywood airing out their personal drama to the rest of the world, when they should have handled all that with the police internally, you know, like most people do when they're the victims of what they perceive to be crimes. But that's not what it is. It's a giant attention whore fest that started off in Hollywood, and then when they saw how much bad press they got and how people started looking at other figures like Roman Polanski and shit, then they said, okay, wait a minute, let's say everybody in the world has to deal with this hashtag. Yeah, that's it. This isn't unique to the depravity of Hollywood. This is something everyone experiences. And that's when it really went off the rails. But it was never really about justice. It was people airing out their personal dramatic bullshit from inside of Tinseltown onto the rest of the world.
You know, one way that you can really tell that Me Too was never about anything but attention and you know, making a fight public and normalizing the craziness in Hollywood is the fact that they never made any effort to obtain any kind of reform, to create or get enacted any kind of reform to the variety of laws that preserve the environment they're complaining about. Nothing. You know, they could have fought to get rid of, you know, if I understand right, California has very strict anti-recording laws. So you can't get proof if someone's abusing you, because you can't secretly record the abuse because it's illegal.
Two-party consent, that's true.
Right. So that's something that they could have fought to have reformed. Another thing they could have fought to have reformed is you have this situation where a man and a woman have a sexual encounter, and whether it's consensual or not, at the end of it, at some point, she gets paid hush money. And if there is a crime that was committed in the course of that, let's say she's being paid hush money after she's been raped, or she's being paid hush money after she was sexually harassed or whatever. She's just been paid money to cover up a crime. Now, that's probably already illegal. But apparently, whatever laws exist out there that make this illegal are not scary enough that lawyers would be unwilling to fix the problem, or would be unwilling to uphold the law. And so now they're willing to have these women sign these agreements to be quiet about crimes that are committed against them, and take money for it. Well, that's an area that can be reformed. It's an area that can be looked at. Say, why is this still happening? Why is this still okay? They did nothing. They didn't even support the push for bringing out the child porn and the child sex abuse scandals that took place in Hollywood. They didn't even stand behind the kids that are coming forward. There's a lot of Gen X Hollywood actors and actresses that have come out and talked about sexual abuse they endured at the hands of the previous generation in Hollywood. And they didn't even bother coming out to support those guys. So there's never been anything in #MeToo but putting on a show and wallowing in their own victimhood and airing out their grievances against people they had conflicts with. It's never been what they've tried to portray it as.
Mm-hmm. No, it never was. Okay, we gotta move on to the next story. We got a lot to get through.
Story number 3.
Story number 3. Yes. It's time. It's time, guys. It's 2018. It's time to talk about robot gender stereotypes. Not kidding. This is Wired, the absolute state of Wired.com. Remember that magazine when it was about tech and like nerdy stuff and it was cool? Well,
Targeting journalism right here.
This Wired magazine has gone to the next fucking level. From Wired Science, perhaps the biggest issue, yet most subtle, is gender. This is dealing with robots, guys. How gender biases manifest in the design of voice assistants is a well-worn territory. Research shows that users tend to like a male voice when an authoritative presence is needed and a female voice when receiving helpful guidance. Scientists are just beginning to consider how these gender biases materialize in physical robots.
Well, that's just voices. Sort of, surely the opposite occurs in physical presence. Like, I'm sure we've gone through this on the show before. People prefer a deep voice because regardless of regardless of sex, a deep voice is more authoritative than a high one because we all associate deep voices with adulthood, be you male or female. But sort of when it comes to like physical presence, like someone who maybe can't talk but is just a face, people generally prefer women. That's why most receptionists are women. Most sort of front of house people are women because people prefer to see a neotenous face. So it sort of goes both ways in a way.
Yeah. Well, this isn't just about voices now. We're going to get into the actual physical robots themselves. So, one study found that participants judged a robot programmed to perform security work as more masculine, while they judged the same robot instead programmed for guidance to be more feminine, echoing the gender preferences towards voice assistants. The danger is that robot makers, consciously or not, may exploit gender stereotypes to try to make their machines more effective, designing a receptionist robot to be more feminine and therefore more welcoming, or a security robot to be more broad-shouldered and therefore more authoritative.
Look, whether you believe in some kind of religion or whether you believe in evolution, somebody or some force designed sexual creature, not just human beings, but every creature that has a male and a female. And they were, I say design in, with a small d, insofar as evolution endeavored to decide that this works better than single sexual like life forms. So we're trying to reverse engineer human beings, and that includes gender.
And in the process, we actually have this writer complaining that a product for human use might be better made because its interaction with humans is understood by its makers. Can you imagine them bitching that how dare your car be made more fuel efficient? How dare car manufacturers get an edge on the market by being able to advertise a vehicle that is more physically comfortable to people based on their understanding of the shape of human bodies and the way human nerves work in response to things they're sitting on? How dare they have that information and use it to make their product more interesting and more attractive to the buyer and more effective in the function that it exists to perform? What is wrong with these people? Don't they realize that products for human use and consumption are supposed to be made antagonistic toward humans? I mean, come on. What kind of a complaint is this?
I think we're dealing with people who wish men and women didn't exist. They generally they lament that they don't exist in a single sex species, and I think they're working towards trying to make that happen.
They don't like that gender expresses itself different for men and women, and that we do have a bias in terms of what we tend to want to see, or how we sort of see things, I guess.
And they've got a point in a way. What's the most likely thing to end up destroying humanity and possibly like the climate of the Earth?
Robots nobody can shoot at because they're cute and female.
It's us. We're going to destroy ourselves because we can't get over this fucking gynocentrism.
Yeah.
And so you can see they've got a point. If you don't sort this out, then this is what scoops us right out of the Drake equation. We're one of those species that's intelligent enough to get this far, but they've just got this bee in their bonnet about gender.
Mm-hmm. This whole article, this is why the robots are going to hate us.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to win. I think it was Musk who said we might just be the organic boot species for a robot super race, and that seems pretty inevitable. I mean, it takes us millions of years to evolve. It takes machines months to evolve.
We may as well invent our own successor, and hell, maybe that's what the dinosaurs did. Maybe they made humans, and then we killed them.
There you go.
I don't think so, but it's something that's fun to think about.
Maybe the robots will do a better job than us.
Maybe. Of course they will.
Yeah, right. Of course. Okay.
Unless we get over this kind of centrism business.
Unless, yeah, robots don't have to worry about it. Unless, of course, we fall to prey to making the robots according to gender stereotypes, in which case they will repeat the same mistakes. All right, so another quote from the article. It doesn't have to be this way. Robots could just as easily be used to confront and begin changing these stereotypes. Quote, it'd be great if somehow we could use robots as a tool to better understand ourselves and maybe even influence some positive change, end quote, says Carpenter. Globally, the social movement we're moving towards is equality. So why go backwards? Why refer to gender norms from the 1960s?
Yeah, the face of Skynet is a woman. The face of Skynet is bound to be a woman.
Well, yeah, it's Helena Bonham Carter. I thought you knew.
The robots are going to figure out that we are powerless against a neotenous female face. So they're going to set it all up that way because they're smarter than us. And you can't. I had another point, but I've forgotten it. Go on.
Well, last bit of this quote is the struggle against capitalism's tendency to gender every product it can. Aha! Found the culprit. It's capitalism somehow.
Yep, it's always capitalism, and the whole
need to destroy capital. Oh wait,
the whole gender stereotype argument is moot because feminists rely on gender stereotypes and gender roles and expectations associated with those roles in order to achieve their own ends as well. The idea that men should be protecting women is a gender stereotype. The idea that men should support women is a gender stereotype, and they rely very heavily on both of those. They couldn't get anything done without relying on those. So their entire argument is shit. And part of it is based on them believing that humans have to be cookie cuttered. You know, we can't be a variety of people with a wide spectrum of conformity or non-conformity to particular centers of a spectrum of stereotypes. No, if there are rugged men, that's apparently an affront to men who are less rugged. And if there are highly intelligent men and intellectual men, then that's an affront to men who are less intellectual. But at the same time, if there are men who are more physical focused and more focused on physical activity, that's an affront to those men who are intellectually focused. And it just goes on and on and on. And it's women imposing women's strictness of social interaction and women's strictness of social perception and women's tendency to sort people out into little groups. These are the preps, these are the nerds, these are the jocks, these are this, these are that. Men would get along just fine with each other as a population if women weren't imposing that shit. And in all honesty, they wouldn't give a shit if a guy conformed or didn't conform to the center of a spectrum of adherences to gender norms and gender stereotypes, which are actually based in reality. It's women turning around and saying, well, you know, this deviates from the center, so it's abnormal, and therefore you have to be cast out. That's where that comes from. And then they bitch about it, and they act like there can't be a variety among men. Well, yeah, there can, and there can among women as well. And what we need to do is simply tell them all of the women, all of the feminists that act as though if you are more, quote, stereotypical, you are somehow, just by your existence and just by you being yourself, preventing someone else from existing and being themselves. You need to tell those people to shut up and fuck off.
Yeah.
I was about to make the point that, there's a lot of species of spider in which the males are like 100th the size of the females, and they just live to break their little spider cock off inside the female and then die. And you never hear social justice warriors like complaining about this. Now, this is clearly an unequal way for genders to treat each other, because it would be absurd. Because the obvious answer is, well, they're spiders. That's how nature has designed them. You can't really change that. I was about to make that point, and then it occurred to me that the exact same point can be made about humans. Well, the women eat the men. The women eat the men sometimes. You can't do a thing about it. I'm afraid we're a bit more complicated than spiders.
I think there are plenty of men that break their penises off inside of women, just not literally. And inside the wrong women that will eat them. I don't think he has a penis to break. Okay, so let me get through the super chats, and then we'll move on to the next story. So, Crawl Dragon gives us $2 and says, "We need a fourth law of robotics to protect women." I'm sure that they're going to program it in. Also, what business is Wired? What business does Wired have assuming robot genders? Hokey Bukisa gives us $5 and says, "Letteth thou that getteth woke goeth broke, desu." And then he gives us another $5, thank you, Hokey, again, and says, "Exactly, Hannah. These phonies aren't fooling us." I think he meant to say fooling us. "They aren't for diversity at all. Their end goal is total homogeneity." Of course, it's an orthodoxy.
We won't get fooled again.
That's right. I tip my hat to the new Constitution. Okay.
Nobody knows what it's like to be the bad man behind blue eyes. Oh, was that a white thing? Oh,
that was so racist. All right, Mike J. Let's talk about Mike Judge, Mark Judge.
Mark Judge, not Mike Judge, not
Mark Judge. Yeah.
Damn it, Bobby!
I get them mixed up all the time. Not Mike Judge, Mark Judge.
Dang it, Brian. Anyway, so the 6 degrees, Brett Kavanaugh. So, in a surprising turn of events during the last few days leading up to now Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation, it was discovered that Mark Judge. A supporter. Mark Judge. Oh, damn it! Now I'm doing it. That Mark Judge.
Damn it, Mike.
Was a supporter of the consumer revolt and push for ethics in games journalism known as #GamerGates. Judge, as you may recall, was one of the witnesses and alleged accomplices that Christine Blasey Ford named during her testimony. In an article for the now defunct website Acculturated, Judge praises the efforts of Gamergate. Judge spends a good deal of the article discussing Anita Sarkeesian, because remember when we used to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Good times.
Things were so much simpler back then. It was simpler back then, actually.
It was a better time, I dare say.
Yeah.
Well, he notes that Sarkeesian has experienced, quote, harassment from gamers, including death threats, and that the media, quote, media has spent a lot of time covering her experience of harassment. He adds that, quote, what the media hasn't covered in detail is the fact that gamers have absolutely demolished Anita Sarkeesian's arguments.
Woohoo! Thank you, Mr. Judge.
Judge goes on to explain that he started reviewing games for a media organization by the name of Catholic News Service, during which time he, quote, discovered that the gaming industry is as diverse as American culture itself. During this time, Judge discovered the YouTubers Mr. Repsion and Alpha Omega Sin, who he both praises for making detailed and well-researched videos, although he does note that Repsion occasionally uses bad language.
What happened to Repsion? I haven't seen a Repsion video in ages.
He kind of dropped off. I looked at his videos just because of this, and I noticed one a couple of months ago basically saying, like, I can't do this full-time anymore, guys. I'm just going to leave this as a hobby, something I do occasionally. And he does have a few videos since then, but definitely not in the volume that he once did. As far as I know, though, Alpha Omega Sin still going strong.
Mm-hmm.
Judge wraps up by saying, quote, gamers keep gaming and game makers keep making games. The controversy is ebbing, and soon the name Anita Sarkeesian will be a footnote in pop culture history.
Well, I'm wrong about that. Yeah, little did he know.
She'll be in the same margins as Jack Thompson. We still remember that guy's name. You know?
Yeah, that's true. But Anita's actually working at companies and getting them to do things. Jack Thompson's not. So
actually, if it wasn't for Anita Sarkeesian, I probably would have forgotten Jack Thompson's name.
Yeah, I think Anita made us remember him.
You know?
Yeah, that's true. Anita's the one that actually allowed us to remember Jack Thompson. Also, I know that you didn't make this part of your write-up, but I really love that he says at the end, as for me, I'm looking forward to playing Dark Souls 3. So, Mark Judge, friend of Brett Kavanaugh, likes Dark Souls 3. That's all. I'm just saying that.
Confirmed shitlord.
Absolutely. I could see it right now. I could see him saying at the end of everything to Christine Blasey Ford, get good. That's it. He praises the sun. That's right.
Brian, Mark Judge fireside chat win.
Yeah, really. Gotta get on there. I'm gonna stream with him now that the remastered is out. I'm sure that we could do that together. I want to play with him.
How the hell did you get Owen Benjamin? I keep meaning to ask this. And no one's even like the Honey Badgers had the fucking Owen Benjamin on, and I was just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah, I know. I bugged somebody that talks to him, and it was one of his bears, and the guy put me in touch with Owen, and it took a while because Owen's busy, but I did manage to get him on just before he did one of his streams, and he said afterwards that he really liked the talk. Hopefully we can get all of the technical issues sorted out better, and he said, let me know when you want to have me back on. So I'm just looking for, I want to give him a break because I know he's got a lot of his own shit, but I'm gonna get him back on. I don't know, Mike. I just I just throw shit at the wall until something sticks, and sometimes I get lucky.
I bet even Sargon couldn't get Owen Benjamin, but fucking Brian fucking got. He gave you Benjamin.
I got Benjamin. I also got David Jaffe a couple of times, and Sargon, when I talked to him at MythCon, he said, "Dude, hook me up," because he was like with David Jaffe because he loves his work. So I'm gonna send David Jaffe Sargon's way at some point. So yeah, I got some. I'm worth something. People like me.
We're pulling the strings, man. We're not in the AIN, which is already old news, but we're the dark shitlords pulling the strings underneath all that.
So Mark Judge, friend of Brett Kavanaugh, shitlord confirmed. Pro Gamergate, plays Dark Souls 3. I thought it was great. I had to share. I did. That's it. I don't have anything to add. I just think it's cool. That's all. It's just a short story. So let's I'll move on. Well, actually, I got a super chat, so I might as well go ahead and read it. MH_mini gives us $5 Canadian and says, Atticus Finch is a rape apologist. I thought that would be good satire, but then I learned in 2015 left mainstream media ran articles calling him racist. Oh, okay. They called Atticus Finch racist in 2015. Boy, they're always working. They're working on the edge. They're right at the, like, when you think that you know where it's going, they've already been there and they're way past. Now that's a hipster.
I still think of 2015 as the current year. It was like the first current year. Thanks to Trudeau, I think it was.
Just remember that today's satire, today's parody is tomorrow's reality.
That's right.
Yeah, it's 6 months or less. Your worst nightmares that you thought were just comedy sketches. No, that'll be reality in 6 months or less. Good luck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so moving on to the next story, we're going to be talking about college students feeling safer in rape culture victimhood. This is a story submitted by one of my spirit animals, Ash Scow, because I only say that because I end up getting a lot of her stories because they're so good. I think she's awesome. So she writes,
journalism isn't dead. There are some journalists still left alive.
She is one of the good ones.
Like Ash.
Ash is a good one. Okay, so Steven Crowder, host of Louder with Crowder, recently went to another college campus to challenge students to change his mind. This is a thing that he does often. Last week, he set up in front of Texas Christian University, TCU, with a sign that read, quote, "Rape culture is a myth, change my mind," end quote. Now, before we go on, I want to point out this is Texas Christian University. So maybe not as like crazy progressive as many others, although I don't know for sure. I'm basing that on what it's called. Many students could not even debate Crowder after being sent into emotional shock and literally shaking from merely reading the sign. The university itself was quick to tweet out that they did not endorse Crowder's assertion that rape culture is not running rampant on their campus and offered counseling services for those adversely affected. Okay, so do you see the problem here? The funny thing here, Crowder is making the argument that university campuses are safer than university staff wants you to believe they are, and that you shouldn't panic. And the response from students is to panic to the point that they need therapy.
Yeah, Karen illustrated this beautifully in a comment that I think she went over in the last HBR talk. It's like the university goes, we disavow Mr. Crowder's assertions that we are not a rape culture. We disavow Mr. Crowder's assertions that women do not get raped on a daily basis, and that 1 in 4 women gets raped on a daily basis and can do nothing to prevent it on our campus. We disavow Stephen Crowder for suggesting that we are not a hellscape comparable with the African Congo. I'm doing my own take on it.
No, but that's exactly it.
That's pretty much what she said.
That's pretty, yeah.
And it was a good point. And it goes right back to what I was saying in relation to Rose McGowan at the beginning of the show, that culture of brokenness, of fashionable brokenness. This is part of that. If imagine your whole social existence being based around a particular thing. Like, go back to the stereotypes. Since we've got all these, like, I'm talking about this, we're all old. Gen Xers are making the news every day. Gen Xers are the main subject of the news right now. There's a Gen Xer on the Supreme Court now. We're all old, right? So go back to the 80s stereotype of the jock, and his whole social life is based around his prowess in sports and his association with cheerleader that he's dating, and his ability to handle the social environment at whatever kind of parties the school has and everything, right? That stereotype, the one that you see portrayed on TV and movies from the 80s all the time, take that away from the guy, and all of a sudden he loses everything in his life. He is nothing. So you take this victim culture, and it, like in all the stories, this is a crisis of identity and personhood. And a lot of times when you look back at old stories, when something like that happens to a guy, it's trial by fire, and he goes through and he comes out of it a better person. Well, women don't have to do that in their lives. They don't have to rediscover themselves a lot of times and come out of it a better person. They just have to come out of it better able to manipulate the people around them socially, right? So you take all the stereotypes out of it and you look at this victimhood thing. And a lot of these younger women, the generation after us, our kids, are growing up taught to believe that their most powerful weapon, the basic premise of their identity, their innermost true selves, is this broken victim. And they build their whole lives around this idea of having been the recipient of a long line, generations upon generations of oppression by the opposite sex. And they have to be scared all the time, and they have to be watching themselves all the time. They have to be aware all the time of this idea that they're constantly being judged, and they're constantly in danger of being taken advantage of and being manipulated and being victimized, sexually victimized, and all this other stuff. And along comes somebody that challenges that. And it's not the same as the character in the stories that ends up with a broken leg and can't perform at sports anymore, or does something and gets kicked off the team and out of his entire social group. It's just an idea. It's not even a reality, but it's all they have. So if you challenge it, they lose their shit. And this is something our generation has done to the next generation that it's going to be on us to fix if we want them to be adults by the time we really are old. And we need them to take care of us because we've become handicapped and helpless. And if we want them to have decent lives, you want your kids to grow up and be happy people. You want your kids to grow up and have the things they want to have in their lives and have happy and good relationships and friends and careers and everything. You don't want them to grow up and be Rose McGowan. But that is basically what's been done by design. to the young women of the millennial generation, to about half of them, by their parents and their teachers and their mentors in kids clubs and churches and everything else. And it's even in churches, as you can see with this university.
Yeah.
So
assuming that's what this university is. I mean, I don't know, it could just be in name only. Like, we have a university here in Chicago that you guys may have heard of called DePaul, which was a religiously themed, it has like a religion at its center, at least it used to, but it's actually one of the most out there, like, progressive, anti-religion, anti-all that shit universities ever, and that is evidenced by the fact that that's the place that Milo tried to go to, where Black Lives Matter charged up on stage and essentially threatened him. So
they have fallen and fallen hard, and that is why the University of Dayton kicks their ass at basketball.
Yeah. And they used to be the Blue Devils used to be a big deal back in the day. So
yeah. Well, they've been kicking their asses at basketball for a long time. I know it goes back and forth and everything, but I remember a particular moment that is probably out there online called The Shot. It's been happening for a long time. So I understand why people from DePaul are afraid of Flyers. They should be.
Yeah. Huh.
Well, we're still peripherally on the subject of Steven Crowder. Apparently, I've had a request, and I haven't seen the footage, but apparently in some attempts to extend an olive branch, Mr. Crowder claimed or referred to men's rights advocates as perpetually aggrieved, a bit like feminists. He was trying to do that thing. And to that I say, cool opinion, bro. You go ahead and have it. You see how I'm not aggrieved, Mr. Crowder? Have I changed your mind?
Yeah.
Or is that not part of the Change My Mind series? Well, MRA's put up with a lot of shit and they let it slide. Change my mind.
Yeah.
Fireside chat, Crowder. Let's make it happen.
Well, I'm trying. It's hard to get Crowder on. But maybe, I got Owen Benjamin. If I get him on again, I'll put in a... And I actually met Crowder. And the thing is, okay, I want to finish this story. And I got to make a point that this is not about Steven Crowder. Like, I know there are people in the chat that don't like him. I get it. He's a trad con. He's got some bad ideas about MRAs. I agree with that. There's things that I like about him, but I know he gets that shit wrong. He gets a lot of stuff about gender absolutely wrong, and that's definitely something we can talk about. But I'm going to finish the story, and I want to make a point about that. So these are the tweets that were put out. TCU says, today Steven Crowder chose to challenge our students on a public sidewalk in front of the university. This is for people who are listening to this on iTunes. I know a lot of you guys have already read this tweet, but there are people who just listen to the shows too. While the Constitution gives him the right to express his views, the sentiments he expressed do not align with TCU's values. His views adversely affected many members of our campus community. The health and safety of the horned frog family is of utmost importance, and we encourage individuals to contact campus resources for support. To reiterate, students upset by the very idea that the culture in America is not the one that encourages and supports the rape of women were offered counseling to reassure them that they should be afraid and afraid of people who say that they shouldn't be afraid. To get a picture of how some students were brandishing their victimhood as virtue, watch this video and check out the first woman featured. Macy, so the name who approaches the desk at Mr. Crowder's Change My Mind videos. Macy approaches Crowder, calling him an idiot asshole. They start their conversation assessing and agreeing on a definition of rape culture. Crowder sets up a comparison. He says, quote, proportionally to other crimes, rapists are convicted at about the same rate as armed robbers, for example. He then asks, do we have an armed robbery culture? Here, Macy pivots, expressing outrage that he has the audacity to come to the campus instead of answering the question. When Crowder replies, saying he had the audacity to speak, quote, the truth, Macy became visibly upset and said, quote,
we need Hannah to do this. We need Hannah to do this.
Oh, okay. I actually have the video clip. But if you want to read where she's where it's at the end of this segment, it's Macy becomes visibly upset and then says, quote, and speak the truth. You see it, Hannah?
There it is. Okay, I was reading.
Do it in a speaker voice.
Macy becomes visibly upset and said, and you speak the truth, and speak the truth? You know what? How about somebody rapes you and then you come and tell me that rape culture is a myth? And it was all downhill from there.
Yes. And here
never understands.
I will show you guys the clip. I've colored it. It's only about a minute long. This is so you can see it for yourselves. So you guys should be able to see this. And then we'll go from there.
Data when.
Well, I think we can, but what would you base it on? Because you obviously referred to me as an idiot that rape culture is a myth. Yeah, I'm basing it on data.
I saw you in your male privilege too, so
you think I'm an idiot on that one as well?
Yeah, I do. I do. And like my brother and I were actually just talking about you yesterday. Like, yeah you're really something. I don't know how you ended up back on this campus because you turned into a meme. Do you know that you're a meme?
Yeah.
On Twitter? Yeah. So I don't know how you have the audacity to like come back on our campus and say that rape culture is a myth, because that's personally offensive to a lot of people I know, actually. And so especially like the audacity to come here and
okay, well, you're a meme now.
Yeah. We and also we all
have to listen to you.
We all have audacity.
Okay. So
it's not over yet. I haven't finished the clip.
People are offended by information. It just gets rabbit hole then. If people are offended by information, we can't. I'm offended by the fact that things I like to eat, if I just eat, certain of the things that I like to eat, and I eat too much of those, and I don't eat other things that maybe I like a little less that are healthier, that eventually somewhere down the road, I will have a heart attack. I'm deeply offended that will happen to me. So I can ignore that, right? And the heart attack won't happen now?
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like you have some audacity, Hannah. That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned from this conversation.
It's running right now on my computer.
Yeah, so is mine. All right, let's finish the clip.
Really? Come here and speak the truth. I have the audacity.
And speak the truth?
Yeah.
What the is that?
Yeah.
You know what?
What the fuck is the truth?
How about somebody rapes you and then you come and tell me that rape culture is a myth?
That has nothing to do with what we're
talking
about.
What? How does that have nothing to do with what we're talking about? And I sit here and told you how empirical data is bullshit because of UCR crime reports.
I don't agree.
Wait.
You didn't even know what a UCR crime report is. Do you even know what NCVS stands for? You tell me.
Okay, I'm stopping it there.
He's barely had a chance to get a word in, by the way. The most offensive thing he's said so far is "I speak the truth." That's what set her off.
and data is bullshit because people say things happened that they don't have any proof for. So the data, the actual measurable, provable facts, those don't matter because people say things that they can't prove. Accusations now outweigh confirmed facts.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what she just said. Accusations outweigh confirmed facts. Crime reports are more important than empirical data. No, because people make accusations that not only don't get proved, but that are proved to be false. And there are hundreds, literally hundreds, of lawsuits against university campuses right now by people who were falsely accused and railroaded because of people like this. That's the other half of this. We have the millennial generation of women who have been broken inside by the narratives of Generation X's feminism, that have this completely in a lack of ability, this complete. I'm so upset by this. To deliberately handicap someone, the Munchausen's by proxy aspect of feminism is repulsive and reprehensible. And as much as I hate what it does to men, I also hate what it does to women. These are women who have in them, and at birth, the capacity to do great things. They're born with an intellect that allows them to go to a university, to learn things like physics, to learn things like chemistry, to learn higher math, to learn other languages, anything that they want to do. And they're handicapped by these stupid ideas, this idea of perpetual victimhood, this idea of constant fear, this idea of being paralyzed by the society they live in that isn't coddling them enough. And how are they supposed to ever have success in their lives with that? How are they supposed to ever become the great things that feminists say women can become, equal to men? How are they ever supposed to do that if they can't even deal with the fact that somebody disagrees with them on a topic and that there's evidence being considered, and that evidence weighs more than accusations? How are they ever supposed to become Supreme Court justices or senators or congressmen? How are they ever supposed to become the next generation's teachers and doctors and lawyers? It just it pisses me off so bad. And the other side of this is an entire generation of men who cannot trust their potential partners in life, who cannot trust that the people that they might work with, the women that they might work with, will not lie about them, will not use them as a stepping stone to social acceptance in this victim, this broken person culture. How can we have a future in our society if we have one sex that is completely handicapped and the other sex that has a big target on their backs all the time, and they're not even allowed to experience love because, God forbid, they offend the person they love? I mean, this is bullshit.
Oh yeah.
You know, the Queen came to my school once, the Queen of England, and I said to her, I said to her, you have some audacity coming here. Don't you know you're a meme? That HR written on everything and that ER written on everything. See the face on all these coins and these banknotes? That's you. You're a meme, madam, a massive one. What kind of chutzpah must you have to show your face in public? Imagine if you were raped. You should be raped.
I hope something like that happens to you so that you stop being a meme. Sorry, my computer just told me something
like that.
I don't know about you, but Stephen Crowder being raped would be one hell of a meme.
I mean, not that I'm laughing at rape, but you're right. It would be.
He makes a good trap. So apparently that means he gives good head.
Oh, yeah, that's probably right. One other thing. This is I want to say, for one, the girl in the video that debates Crowder, I agree that she's wrong, absolutely, and it's fucked up what she's doing, but I think that she's a symptom. I mean, she's obviously a symptom of a larger problem. Like, she's the student. She is the tool of the people that taught her that shit. If she wasn't taught that shit, she probably wouldn't have been so smug, so smarmy, so sarcastic, and so self-righteous enough to act that way towards Crowder, and get so angry when she found that she wasn't able to actually counter his arguments. I think, you know, cognitive dissonance is very painful for people. It's very painful. And that's usually how they tend to respond. So yeah, I'm not giving her a complete pass, but yes, it's the people that taught her that shit.
They're responsible for that.
Absolutely.
Pain. They may as well have beaten her, you know, as like take out a baseball bat and just beat her with it to do this to her. It's not really all that different.
Or just make a loud noise while they're playing with a cat, and they'll fear cats forever. They did this with baby
Albert.
Baby Albert.
Yeah, the behavioralist Skinner.
Was it Skinner who did that?
I think it was Skinner.
I thought it was a Russian guy.
Skinner had. I think Skinner did that one, and he did because he's the guy that, you know, you've heard of the Skinner box. He raised his kid in a. And the idea of, you know, human, this is actually kind of relevant, human contact, the value and importance of human contact. This is something that's being taken away from the next generation by the, quote, social justice warriors of our generation. This is abuse.
I get there are people saying that she's an adult, she's, you know, in her late teens, responsible for. I get that, but you got to understand that if you are only exposed for part of the narrative, and you're putting trust in your educators to tell you the truth, and they feed you this bullshit about rape culture, All right.
Well, the question
I
is,
agree that she should take some responsibility for her own ideas, but we are not addressing the root of the problem if we're only saying this about her. And I'm just basically trying to also put attention on where she got this, which is the university. I don't know. She could be. She could have just gotten in, but I don't really know.
Well, she's legally an adult, most likely. But has she been allowed to become an adult? This is another one. Millennials taking adulting classes all over the country now. Why? Because they didn't get to become adults during the growing up process.
Right.
Sorry, this is one of these things. Like, this actually makes me sick. Seeing this done to people by their mentors in their lives. This teaching people to be what she is. That makes me as sick as that scene in Misery where she hits him with the sledgehammer and breaks his ankle. Mm-hmm. The deliberate handicapping of people. Like, I went to school with people who were genuinely handicapped, who worked an immeasurable amount of difficulties and problems to get to do normal things with normal people. I had a kid in my class who died of muscular dystrophy at 13 years old in the 7th grade, who played dodgeball with us in his electric wheelchair because that was the normal thing to do. And he chose to do that, and he chose to come to school, and he chose to take his homework home. The week that he went into the hospital and died, he took homework. He took his homework home. He was going to come back. He was so weak in class during his last month or so, couple of months even, that he couldn't raise his own hand. His aide had to raise his hand in class for him, and he was still there, and he was still participating, and he was still striving for that normalcy. And I see this generation this broken and this incapable of dealing with just a simple question and a simple discussion and taking facts into consideration that contradict a belief they have. And it's just heartbreaking. And it is angering, and it makes me sick.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to say about Crowder himself. Like I said, I know that he's gone after MRAs and, compared us to feminists and other shit like that. And I'd like to get him on the show and talk to him. But I will say this, though. I'm not that annoyed with it because at the end of the day, he is having conversations with people about the talking points that we use. And he's using those, and it's helpful to his show, right? So this rape culture.
Well, maybe not a friend, but he's closer to a friend than the majority of the population, and it's important that we forgive our friends because we'll always be arguing from a position of weakness and non-aggression. Well,
perhaps one day we can change his mind.
But I will say this though. Crowder's out there doing this stuff. He's in the real world talking to people live and putting it on camera and trying to change people's minds, or at least inviting them to try to change his. Okay? And I guess until the point or the day comes that we or people that represent MRAs or whatever we want to call ourselves are until the point at which people who are actually making the arguments that we make. And I know that we often come from, as Mike said, the position of weakness, or maybe we're always seen as kind of radical, and that's why right-wingers distance themselves from MRAs a lot of the time, and that's why left-wingers see us as the fucking enemy, because they think that where we're coming from is just too outside of their thinky box. But at least he's out there doing it, and I will say that if I'm going to leave him alone because that is happening, and he's using the arguments, and he talks to Karen, and I think that if we, I guess what I'm saying is that until we're doing the same thing, I'm not going to complain. So I think that's why I want to move into the realm of the real world. I want to go to campuses and talk to people. I want to show up at protests and ask people questions, because right now, the only people who are doing it are right-wing entertainers and pundits and commentators. They're the ones doing it. And so if we're going to get our arguments out there and our voice out there, I think we need to be a part of that as well. That's my opinion. So I'm not going to hate on him for doing the thing that I should be doing. And that's basically how I see it.
Yeah, similar things go on with Joe Rogan. You can never really tell if he's joking or if he's just slowly learning. I'm going to try and do a collab with Mitch Charming Man about this.
About Joe Rogan? Is it about the Asian guy who was getting kissed by women?
I don't know. He hasn't said me what he's done yet. But yeah, it's trying to approach normies is a completely different kettle of fish to trying to approach feminists.
Yeah,
you can't be as red pill ragey. Actually, I think we're all over the red pill rage right now. We've been here for fucking years.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Okay, I got some super chats, and then we'll move on. So Crawl Dragon gives us $5 and says, the MRAs on the HBR Discord are the most supportive and awesome people I've known in a long time. Come and have a chat, Crowder. Well, send it to him at S Crowder, if you will. I would love to get him on and talk to him. Egregious Charles gives us $5 and says, audacity, imagine a member of any historical underclass telling off the upper class for their audacity. French Honey Badger for $5 says, I, for one, am glad that if that culture stunts them enough I, for one, am glad that if that culture stunts them enough that they can't achieve great things in society and don't spread that ideology further. I understand that. Albert Nada gives us $5 Canadian and says, Brian was raped by Trevor Noah. I was there and would have stopped it, but oh wait, wrong stream. Why did you bring that back up? Now I'm experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder from the time that Trevor Noah put his finger up my bum, and I don't know if I can continue with the show.
And now I'm developing a false memory. Now I think Trevor Noah thumb raked me up the ass as well.
It's not a false memory if you're having it. It's your lived experience, Mike. Don't deny that. It's a false memory. That sounds like rape apologia to me, sir.
I was raped by the Berenstain Bears and Gandhi at the same time.
Or they're the Berenstain Bears.
Them too. I was raped by both universes.
I don't know. That's kind of hard to discern.
Part of that might be anti-Semitic, but I don't know. Okay, so last story. We're at the end here. Democrats won't stop fight after Kavanaugh becomes Supreme Court Justice. I thought you might want to know this. He may be in, but it ain't over. After a 50-48 vote, with one Democrat joining the Republican majority and with one Republican abstaining, Brett Kavanaugh was successfully appointed to the Supreme Court of the United States. He was sworn in Saturday evening after a tumultuous past few weeks. However, just because Kavanaugh has been confirmed does not mean that Democrats are going to take that line down. Democratic Representative from New York, Jerry Nadler, has said that if the Democrats retake the House of Representatives, then he wants to keep investigating Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's allegations. He says regarding the investigation that, quote, it's not something we are eager to do. Yes, it is. But the Senate having failed to do its proper constitutionally mandated job of advise and consent, we are going to have to do something to provide a check and balance, to protect the rule of law, and to protect the legitimacy of one of our most important institutions. He also said that, quote, the committee would also seek to interview Judge Kavanaugh's accusers and the dozens of potential witnesses they identified in recent days, most of whom were not contacted by the FBI. He said he would also call the FBI Director, Christopher A. Wray, to testify. So that means that if they win the majority, they're going to go after him again. And that
I hope they run on that. Oh, please let them run on that. Let that be their main campaign issue. That is the one thing they're going to focus on if they win. That their whole campaign is about nothing but taking down the other side by this type of behavior. Let that be it. They don't have any other issues. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about the foreign things that are going on. They don't care about any foreign. Yeah, none of that.
Bring up the Patriot Act with regards to Kavanaugh? No, it doesn't matter.
No. They're not gonna challenge any of the things that the Republicans have actually done. They're not gonna challenge any of the things that have been accomplished during this administration. They're not gonna run on immigration. They're not gonna run on anything. they're just going to run on resentment. Oh, please let them do that. Because if that's what they do, they will lose so hard. There's not enough resentment in the world to get a party elected like that, to get candidates elected on just resentment and no other issues.
I'm fairly confident we can get Jeremy Corbyn in. That's exactly how it's going to happen. But yeah, we're a less optimistic country.
Oh, wow.
This is so dumb.
I know, right? I mean, they could have done it better from the beginning, obviously. But this is all. It's just like they say. SJWs always double down. This is, I think, what they're double down on rape, double down on rape, double down on rape, double down on rape. That's all they're doing, and they got nothing. And it's just, but they're not done. So yeah, I mean, over the weekend, if you celebrated the fact that he was confirmed, and I know the majority of people that did celebrate, myself included, the fact that he was confirmed, only did so not because they actually liked this judge and they liked the things that he was, that he's known for, or some of the stuff that he's done, like, again, Mike said, his support for the Patriot Act and other things, but because of the tactics that the opposition used. We had to stop it. We had to. Otherwise, they would use rape accusations to attack anybody. And now that that didn't work, they're going to try it again. They're going to double down, and they're going to do it again. It's not about anything else except that. So what does it mean? It's just like Lindsey Graham said. By God, you guys want power. I hope you never get it. That's the only thing it's about. And that's actually really telling. They don't have a problem with the Patriot Act, apparently. They have a problem with possible, maybe poorly remembered rape accusations, or whatever the accusations were. I'm not even sure anymore, because they were sexual assault or rape or sexual misconduct. It's all the same now. That's how they see it. It's all the same.
One thing I'm kind of hoping is that Kavanaugh's ordeal with due process will cause him to revisit every opinion he's ever had where due process would factor in. And frankly, with the Patriot Act kind of raped due process. It raped a lot of civil rights in terms of your privacy rights and the division between government authority and your privacy. So I'm kind of hoping that his ordeal, what he's been through, has hit him with the tendency to look at that stuff again and say, well, maybe I was wrong about supporting this. Maybe the idea that people have the right to be treated as innocent until proven guilty of something has some value. And that's the one good thing, the one really good thing about the temper tantrum they had and the allegations, the way they basically just used women to throw men at this guy. Maybe the one good thing that will come out of this is that they have just hammered home all to hell and back the vital value of that aspect of due process. Innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. I bet Kavanaugh learned something about that.
That's what I'm hoping.
He didn't know it before.
And see, Clarence Thomas learned it during his confirmation. And so now we've got two that hopefully have learned it during their confirmation. I mean, they put every other man on notice.
And we're not saying that this justifies those actions, by the way. It's like you often hear feminists saying it's okay if a man is accused of rape because he'll learn something from his actions. That's not what we're saying.
No, it's the silver lining in the dark cloud.
No, he learned something, all right.
Every dark cloud has a silver lining. That's the silver lining.
And beer is the drink of rapists.
Well, okay, guys. I guess that confirms it. That makes me a rapist.
That's why I only drink hard liquors, I guess.
That's why every country is a rapist. Like, apart from the ones that have outlawed alcohol, literally every country likes
if you
beer.
reverse
Saudi Arabia,
if you reverse hard liquor, though, you still get rape.
Wasn't beer invented in Egypt?
Mesopotamia.
Mesopotamia.
That sort of
so that's probably where rape started then.
Cradle of life, also known as the cradle of rape.
The cradle of rape. Okay. Well, I guess, are there any final thoughts on this story? Because we're about ready to close out. We've gone for 2 hours. This is the extra long show. I apologize for that. Sometimes these things go a little long. You just don't know.
Blame Discord. We can blame Discord.
I will partly blame Discord. Yeah, we did get started late, but this did go long. But that's okay.
It's just an especially spicy sausage this time.
Yes, exactly. It's an especially spicy chorizo this time. So, well, we're going to wrap up the show, and we're going to go into the after show to look at this. For those of you who might be experiencing one too many fainting couch episodes. This is from the HuffingtonPost.com, part of their self-care and wellness site. It's entitled 12 Self-Care Tips If You're Struggling to Deal with Everything Today Because of the Brett Kavanaugh Confirmation.
Number 3 will make you seem like a 5-year-old.
Yes, if you can't even, then you might want to look at this. So we're going to go into the after show. And if you want to be a part of that, you have to be a patron at patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Look it up. It's all in the low bar. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to Badger live streams because that's where the streams will go. And I think it'd be a good idea. Maybe at one point, all the streams will only be on Badger live streams, and maybe we'll change the name of it to Money Badger. I don't know. I'll bounce it off of Alison and see what she thinks. In the meanwhile, I want to thank you guys for coming on to watch the show, and I want to thank the Mikes and Hannah for coming on to talk about the show. Sorry, and I want to thank Discord for making it so interesting. Now that is it for me. We'll see you guys on the next HBR News Show. Have a lovely, lovely day.